And thank you so much for watching Faith in Politics. We've heard from many of you that you're really enjoying the show, being more local and expanding our national coverage. Thank you. And one other thing I want to announce today is that we have partnered with Prager University to provide pro-American, pro-family content that will allow us to expand our viewpoint from across the nation. We're very excited about that. And as the year comes to an end, many of you have donated to Call TV, and we just want to say thank you. For those of you that have not donated, would you consider doing so before the year end so that you could receive that tax deduction? Thanks for watching Faith in Politics. Enjoy the program.
Aloha and welcome to Faith in Politics, where we aim to discuss politics through the lens of faith, both here in Hawaii and around the world. And on this Veterans Day, to all of our veterans, thank you for your service. I'm Brian Lau, and I'll be your host for this episode. In today's program, we'll join in on a town hall sponsored by Real Impact in California. The town hall specifically focuses on employees and school-age children exemptions for the vaccine mandates across the nation. If you've been thinking about submitting an exemption, then get a pen and paper ready, because you'll be walked through the process of submitting one. We are also excited about our new partnership with PragerU. This week, we feature Jordan Peterson as he discusses Marxist ideologies that are funded by you, the taxpayer, and is being taught in schools across America. But first, let's join in on the Real Impact Town Hall. Here's the host of Real Impact, Gina Gleason, who introduces the first speaker.
So we're going to start off with our first speaker tonight. We're going to start off with Brad Dacus. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Brad. He's the president of Pacific Justice Institute, which he founded in 1997. He's worked with hundreds of volunteer affiliate attorneys across the country. He can be watched daily on Brad Dacus Live on hischannel.com. He's also heard weekly on the Dacus Report on more than 711 radio stations across the country. He's appeared on numerous TV programs, CNN, Dateline, Good Morning America, MSNBC, Fox News, and he just loves to speak at churches and conferences throughout the United States. Brad, at one point, his law firm represented me when I was a proponent on the co-ed bathroom bill. Remember when they passed that law that said boys and girls have to share restrooms, showers, locker rooms? And we fought that. And the Secretary of State, Deborah Bowen, was sued because the counties had removed what were good and valid signatures. So Brad's firm defended us as we tried to get those signatures validated. Of course, they played their tricks and it didn't work, but we know that the people signed enough signatures on that petition to stop that, but the shenanigans didn't stop them. So I'm very blessed and honored to invite Brad Dacus up to the podium today. Give him a warm welcome.
Thank you.
Brad,
thank you so much. Well, it's great to be here, and I just want to set the record straight. You know, Bob and I are both attorneys, and I know there's lots of jokes about attorneys, so I just want to set the record straight. It's the 99% out there that give us 1% of bad reputation. So, very good. I'm glad you guys laughed. I did that at one church. I do guest preaching, and they just went, yep. And so, thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here today. How many of you are parents? Raise your hand. Have kids in public schools or private schools? Okay. How many of you are employees and you're under the gun right now with the vac? Wow. Okay. How many of you have just bought property in Costa Rica? No. So, okay. Anyway, let's talk about that today, some of these issues. I just want to first say that it's great being up here with all the people up here. Gina's doing great work, and Rebecca with her work that you're going to hear about with the homeschooling, and it's been great partnering with her and working. It's a wonderful, actually positive thing that's going on. And then, of course, Bob has done just great work as an attorney. And so what I want to focus on is the issue of employees and employers in that regard, and how do you deal with that? And what are your rights in that regard? Well, let me just say right up front, on our website, we put a lot of work to prepare our website with the resources that you need because we were overwhelmed. And so it's pji.org, pji.org. And also, if you have your sheet, did everyone get one of these, by the way? No? No? Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear a number you didn't get it. But when you leave in the back on the table, if you fill it out, just put it on the table in the back for Pacific Justice, or you can pick one up and get it. And the reason is because specifically, if you're a parent and you have children in public schools, and I'm not going to talk about that, that's Bob's expertise, but he's going to talk about it. But we're preparing a customized, a personal belief exemption form for parents. Once the mandate actually gets implemented and we see the actual results, we're going to customize this, and then we're going to send it out to all parents. And it's going to be, under the existing law, it will protect you and your child in that regard. But let's talk about as far as employees and employers. We have a lot of challenges we're undertaking right now. In Los Angeles, we're suing the mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Garcetti. And yeah, you guys really like him, I can tell. No. So, and the city of Los Angeles and the LAPD on behalf of the police officers who have been told that they can't continue. So, and I have so much respect for law enforcement, and if any of you are in law enforcement, just remember I said that when you pull me over next time, okay? So, but in addition to representing those, we just filed for a temporary restraining order. We also have filed another lawsuit. It's actually preparing to file on behalf of a lot of firemen in a class action lawsuit up in Washington State with our office there. We have another lawsuit that we just filed, I think it was this morning, in Detroit on behalf of scores of nurses with our office in Detroit. We're filing it with New York on behalf of a lot of nurses. And then in Miami, we have a lawsuit going to bat for over 11,000 angry parents who were told by a school district, Palm Beach, that it doesn't matter what they want, those kids are going to wear masks whether you like it or not. And we don't get angry, we just sue. So anyway, we filed a lawsuit there. Great attorney, Alex Bumbu is a wonderful attorney. So we're very aggressively involved in litigation. We've got other lawsuits with individuals throughout the country. We have a lot of offices that God, by His grace, has given us just within the last 3 years. So in addition to the 5 offices that we have in California, 3 in Southern California, 2 in Northern, we have one in Oregon, near Portland, Seattle, Reno, Denver, Dallas, Mississippi, Miami, Atlanta, New York, New Jersey, Boston, Philadelphia, Detroit, Cincinnati, Chicago, Milwaukee, and I think that's it. So anyway, and the reason I point this out is you guys may say, well, I'm not in those places, but you may know of people who are. And I want you to be sure and contact us. We're putting on town halls all across the country because of the need, and it's just by God's providence because these people are stepping forward to help. Now, with regards to how do you prepare yourself? Okay, I know initially there was let's first talk about religious exemption. Initially, there was sort of an understanding by many people. They thought, we'll just print out a form, sign it, print out a statement of faith that someone wrote, sign it and date it, and put it in. How many of you guys have done something like that with just okay. What you may have found out, some of you may have grace in terms of an employer who's friendly and says, okay, that's fine. But you have other employers, like Kaiser Permanente and many others, who've said no. And the reason they're saying no, unfortunately, is because the burden is to show sincerely held religious beliefs. That's the goal. That's the line you need to cross. sincerely held religious beliefs, boom, that's the objective. It's not to persuade them that vaccines are bad or that your constitutional rights are being violated or the statistics or whatever. It's your sincerely held religious belief. It's hard to make that case if everything is already pre-done, right? So what we do on our website, I'm going to say it a number of times, pji.org. You can click there, vaccine resources, and click employee, and it will give you the information you need to prepare a solid religious exemption request. How many have been to our website to look at that and use that? Raise your hands. Okay. Very good. Was it helpful? Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And then when that's filed and you submit that, you want to submit it via email. You also want to submit it hard mail. Physically. So you want it undisputable that they have it. Let's say they deny it. What do? Well, contact us. We do all our work without charge, always. So contact us, and we will look at it, and we'll assess. Okay, is there a problem? Now, sometimes the employer says, "Well, no, you're only allowed one. You can only do it once." Well, that's not what Title VII says. Title VII is a federal civil rights statute. Okay, it has no. You can only submit one, whatever. Okay, so. No, you go ahead and say, for clarification purposes, I wish to clarify some of my other points. Some people went off on constitutional things and toxic nature of the vaccines, whatever, and they didn't realize, and so we've advised them, no, go back and say, I want to focus on the core reason, the sole reason that's driving me, which is my religious beliefs. And what should you put in that kind of a form? First, start off with your testimony. Start off with your testimony. Say, well, that's real religious. Yeah, that's what you want. Okay? You want it to be experiential and scriptural. Everything you say should pretty much fit under experiential and scriptural. So, as I've said before, I went to a group of teachers recently in Chino Valley, and I gave my example. I said, so I'm a Christian. Some of you are not Christians. But I said, I'm a Christian. So I would start off with, I became a Christian when I was in 3rd grade. And I heard the pastor preach that I was a sinner, that we're all sinners. We've all fallen short of God's holiness. We've all blown it. And I felt convicted, and I walked down the aisle to pray and receive Jesus as my Lord and Savior, to put my trust in him for forgiveness and made him Lord of my life. And that began my walk with the Lord. And then when I talked about what it means to be a Christian is to have a relationship with God and to have that walk. And then examples of times when I sought the Lord, I prayed, and he spoke to me. He convicted me of what to do here and what to do there. So they see that this is normal for me to pray, for me to be convicted by the Lord. It's not something I just came up with because I wanted to find an excuse because I heard an attorney speaking at a seminar. You want to make sure you go through that. That was too close to home. I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, so you do that, get that information out, and in there you put in the scriptures, right? Not just 1 or 2 scriptures, right? You be big on the scriptures. Romans 14, and in Romans 14, I think it's 29, I think it's verse that says, if you're doing something and you're doubting it, it's a sin, There's all kinds of verses about walking in the Spirit, praying, seeking the Lord's direction in what you're doing. So you want to get that in there, and then you towards the bottom, you want to also mention if indeed you're willing to lose your job, you will not get the vaccine, state it. And the reason, because case law has said that people, if they make it clear that they are willing to lose their job instead of getting the vaccine, that on its face, ipso post facto, is sincerity. And that's assumed. Sincerity is assumed. Now, don't say it if you're not willing to lose your job, because guess what? You may lose your job. You may not have that opportunity to backtrack. But sincerely, if that's what you believe, you want to state that. And you also want to state your laying claim to your rights under Title VII. We state this all on our webpage. And if it's a federal employee, you also want to say also under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. So if it's a federal agency employee. And then you want to state, now, I'm willing to engage in reasonable accommodation policies. So I'm willing to engage in wearing a mask. I'm willing to be tested every week. Now, I talked to some people, and one person in the audience said, well, I have a religious objection against the vaccine, a religious objection against the mask, and a religious objection against getting tested every week. This violates my rights. And I said, well, let me just tell you, as an ideologue, as an activist, I agree with you 100%. And Absolutely. Now, as an attorney, you're going to lose, okay? And I made it really clear that your ideology can be different than pragmatic understanding of where you are legally. If you lay claim to all of those, then a judge is going to look and they're probably going to say, or maybe it's arbitrator, depending on how it's worked out, say, really? Really? You're just being obstinate. No. And is likely to disqualify your sincerity completely. So if you really are sincere about those things, make sure you're really sincere and you can really lay it out. Otherwise, I say stick with the vaccine if that's the real issue. If that's the real issue, okay? And you can have a good chance of prevailing. Let's give you a scenario. Let's say you don't prevail. Okay, you've done all these things. You have several pages. You've experiential, scriptural. You've done all that. Then you can, in our website, we talk about that. What if you're denied? And you've already resubmitted, you got clarity. Then what you can do is file a claim with the EEOC. Now, good news is the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunities Commission, recently came out and affirmed that they do back religious exemptions, the validity of religious exemption for sincerely held religious beliefs. They will probably not represent you. They'll probably give you a right to sue letter, in which case you want to contact a law firm, maybe Bob's firm or our Pacific Justice Institute, or another attorney. That's up to you. But we're preparing right now to be overwhelmed with those kinds of cases. We have already filed several dozen right to sue request letters on behalf of clients and people in those situations. So that's sort of in a nutshell in terms of religious exemption. And what about medical exemption? People will say, well, I don't really have a disability. Well, let me just ask you a question. And some of you may have certain conditions, okay? And if you do, you want to be able to get a letter from a doctor signing off stating that. Now, you may say, well, wait a minute. The doctors are all saying that they can't give an exemption because they've been told by the medical board, California, that this just happened this last week. A doctor told me this. We're trying to help people. He says, I can't. I was just informed by the medical board of California that I'm going to lose my license. Don't you love living in a free country? Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know, it doesn't at all. So let me tell you, Texas, it's not the place to go. No, I used to live there. This is a great state. Florida's humid too, but you live in what I call an oppressive state. California, it's not a free state, it's an oppressive state. So, facing the reality of that, nonetheless, under the Americans with Disabilities Act, you can get an opinion actually from a doctor outside of California. You can, and under the ADA, that can be a separate claim. That's separate from the policies established by the state. You still have that, and the ADA is actually very, very broad. But what about, let's just say you've had the COVID vaccine, all right? You've had it. How many people, actually not the vaccine, let's say you've had the COVID virus. How many have had the COVID virus? Okay, no. So I got it also in March, so I'm infected just like a lot of you. So I'd much rather be infected, though, with the virus. Anyway, I'll keep it at that. So if you've had it, that's an argument for medical exemption. That is, you've had the virus, and what we recommend you to do is to get your antibodies tested. Find it, look it up, have your antibodies tested. Ideally, get a letter from a doctor to validate. In fact, there's still a doctor I know of in California that you can go to, but contact me about that because I don't want to overwhelm this doctor who's in the Inland Empire, which is good news. But and she's right now still moving forward. So but you have a doctor review it, and then ideally in a letter state, this client has had COVID. Their antibody levels are whatever, 350. This level is as strong and actually stronger and broader than that of the protection of a vaccine. In addition, the vaccine may result in complications in this client. Therefore, I prescribe, the word's prescribe, I therefore prescribe so-and-so, John Doe, not to have an existing COVID virus vaccination. So that's in there. You attach that, boom. Also, you want to go to our website, and you'll find another valuable resource. We put on there an index that you can reference 91 studies. And you want to include this. It's an index, 91 studies, maybe just the link, okay? But it's 91 studies validating that those who have a natural immunity because they have COVID in the past have a broader and stronger immunity than this narrow vaccine, which is quickly waning as these variances are taking over. So that's a very valuable resource. What about the religious exemption? Should you include something about that? Yeah, at the bottom when you're talking about accommodation, say also, for the record, also I have already had the COVID virus and have a strong natural immunity, giving me a stronger and broader protection of, than the vaccine. Please review my medical, for information, please review my separate medical exemption request. So that's sort of in a nutshell. Now, which one do you choose? You can do both. Make them separate. Make it very clear, though. You can do both. You can do one or the other. Now, what if you say, I'm not going to do any of those, my rights are violated? Well, I agree with your rights are being violated. This is a total infringement on your privacy and your human dignity and the law, the Nuremberg trials and everything, and then you're going to lose, okay? So don't want to do that, all right? And unless you want to lose. I had to talk to, we're doing so many calls. I had to talk to someone today about that, and that's what I told him. I says, I care about you, and where are you going to move to? Because you're going to lose your job. And so be pragmatic, be wise, right? Keep your eyes also on the Lord when you're doing this. The goal is not, this is not a spitting match, okay? This is serious, and you need to seek the God's direction. Keep your manners and your temperament with the Lord. If you slug your employer on the way out, it's going to really mess up your case, okay? So, and also seek God's direction in intervention. Attorneys, we can be advocates and we can do things. At the end of the day, it's really about trusting the Lord. Be wise, be discerning, be humble in your countenance, and keep your eyes on the Lord, trusting that He knows what's best. And that may be, you may end up having to file a claim with the EEOC. Maybe you move on. And at the same time, some of you, if you're denied and you're fired, then you may find yourself saying, okay, well, I'll just file a lawsuit. Well, it takes time. First, to get a right to sue letter from the EEOC, it takes time. A number of you may have to just simply move on and get another job. Some of you may move on and go to another state. I don't like that because we need as many good people here as we can. So I don't like that at all. But practically speaking, think things through and remember to keep your hope and your trust in the Lord. It says, be anxious in some things, but not other things. No, where's it go? How's this? Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, right? Let your prayer, supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, even in these circumstances, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus, our Lord. We can't forget that. And we have thousands and thousands and thousands right now requesting help. And yet I've just exhorted a whole staff and our attorneys this morning. We need to keep our eyes on Christ, and with Him, there's always victory, one way or the other. God bless you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Great advice during this interesting season. For those who need more help in submitting an exemption, please visit the Pacific Justice website and click on Resources. After the break, we'll hear from attorney Robert Tyler and the vaccine mandates affecting school-aged children. We'll be right back.
We have a mission here at Calo TV. We continue to be the only local Christ-centered media outlet in Hawaii. God has planted this station to nourish believers and to harvest souls for eternity. It's a calling we hold dear, and today we need your help. Partner with us as we continue to create original local programs.
The church needs to just stick to the scriptures.
She was like this as a little girl.
Running around.
Yeah, running around. Yeah.
Showcase solid biblical teaching.
We reach more people in one day with the broadcast of the gospel.
It's music to God's ears.
Improve our infrastructure and influence social media. Are you willing to labor with us for Hawaii, for your ohana, for the next generation? Go to kalotv.com and partner with us today.
Kalo Outreach encourages us to give back to our communities across Hawaii. It is personal faith in action, a godly mandate where actions speak louder than words. Join us as we love on our community in practical ways. Visit kalooutreach.com and volunteer, give, or register a community need. Together, we will make a difference to our communities. Kalo Outreach.
Welcome back to Faith in Politics. Let's continue with the Real Impact Town Hall with our next speaker, Robert Tyler and the vaccine mandates affecting school-aged children.
So next, we have Robert Tyler with Advocates for Faith and Freedom. And Bob, who I've known forever, he says, oh, don't read a bio. And I said, okay, then I'm just going to talk about you. But Bob has a heart of gold. Bob is, and he's an attorney, believe it or not. But he does. He has a heart of gold. And he's the kind of guy that you can call him with a really important situation that you're dealing with, and he will help you. So I want you to take advantage of his good heart and give him a call at Advocates for Faith and Freedom. They're based in Murrieta. He founded his law firm many years ago, 2005. He's also the head counsel at Tyler and Birch, a private law firm, and he is truly one of the heroes in California, and I just really love him. I love working with him. He represented our church one day when our school board decided we weren't going to have invocations any longer. So we thought as a church, well, you have to have invocations. It's our right to pray at school board meetings. So Bob is the law firm that defended us. He's always been there for us, so please give a warm welcome to Bob Tyler. Thank you, Bob. Love you.
It's good to be back with you guys again. It's been a bit. Let me talk to you about a few things. First, y'all heard there's an OSHA mandate that came out just recently with regard to employers. How many, I'm not going to ask you that question. What I'd like to do is, I've got a friend here who has a company that has more than 100 employees, 400 plus, and we're interested in talking to other employers who are now going to be subject to this Biden mandate that if you have over 100 employees, that you as an employer are going to have to enforce the vaccination requirements. And I know if you're here today, you probably are not too happy about that. My friend Steve Bray, my black hat guy, he's right down here in front. Maybe if he might be back at our table at the end. Please come talk to him, because we're putting a coalition together right now, and so we'll be bringing a lawsuit against the administration with regard to this just unconscionable mandate. Thank you. Like my friend Brad, we have had so many people calling us. We are inundated. The number of phone calls that are coming in, and I'm sorry, some of you may have called us and we haven't been able to call you back, or we're directing you to our website. We've tried to do likewise, like Brad has tried to direct people into the website to be able to get the information on our exemption form that you can fill out for employers, if you're an employee, for your employer. I don't know, if a few weeks ago it had been downloaded 15,000 times. Plus, I gave gave Pastor Jack our exemption form, which I think you guys still have on your website, and I would imagine that's probably been downloaded who knows how many times, probably many more. You know, another thing that's pretty cool, I was in Florida last week speaking, and what's happening at this church, you know, it goes all the way to the other coast, what you guys are doing. I was talking to a pastor there who expressed just the great things that are coming out of this church in standing for liberty, standing for Christ, most importantly. And Gina, such a huge part of that, all across the country. Thank you. So, an important thing here is that we have to battle in California. I've been saying this for years. What happens in California gets exported to the rest of the country. We've seen it with, we battled the domestic partnership legislation and the same-sex marriage. We defended Prop 22 and Prop 8, and and what happens here gets exported. We were involved in battling against SB 777, which redefines sex in California public schools. And now that redefinition has spread to the entire country. Folks, you could leave, but you can't hide. You can leave and go to another part of the country, and you might have some comfort for a few days, maybe. Yeah, really, maybe a couple years. But I guarantee you what happens here is going to find you in Arkansas, in Mississippi, in Florida, everywhere. So we have to battle here. God's called us here. I'm not planning on moving. I want to, but I'm not planning on moving. So we've got to battle. So Gene asked me to talk about the schools. And as parents, what can you do? Oh, my heart breaks for you, for those of you who have kids. How many of you have kids in high school or below? Raise your hand. Wow, God be with you. And I'm serious. It's tough. So let's talk about what you're up against. First, the mandate. What is this mandate all about? We've been on some... one of our lawyers here, Netta Higuera, she was with you guys last week speaking. I'm sorry I'm not her. She should be up here talking this time, most likely, better than I. I'm actually trying to kind of scale back and have Netta take everything over, and she agreed to do that, right? No. And so when I soon retire, if I could, anyways... But Netta's going to be in the back as well. But we're talking about some of these things that are going on around the country, and we've seen so much, and we're trying to, between what's happening in the elections, we have an election lawsuit, we have things that we're involved in, these crazy things. We have lawsuits against big technology. We're defending Pastor Mike McClure, which your church was so awesome. Pastor Mike McClure, Calvary Chapel, San Jose, fined $3.8 million because he wouldn't follow strictly the mandates that the County of Santa Clara demanded. So now we're going to sue County of Santa Clara again on behalf of a whole bunch of employees, and that's coming up. And we're seeing these things that are coming our way, which, by the way, Erin, she's leading the fight for for Santa Barbara teachers, and we're going to bring a lawsuit against them soon. We have it all prepped and ready to go because they're being told, well, if you don't get vaccinated, we're going to put you on unpaid administrative leave. How many of you have seen that out here? I'm sure many of you are in that same boat. That's not a reasonable accommodation. So what's the purpose behind all of this? I really think that it's not mere medical issues. It's not even to try to get you just to comply. It's not just to take your individual liberties away, but it's to put a mark on you to figure out who you are, who is willing to comply and who is not willing to comply. And then once they have that figured out, the next is somewhat questionable. But think about it. Possibly. So California becomes the first state in the nation to mandate the COVID-19 vaccine for kids, for schools when it becomes available. So students will be required in their grade span, K through 6 and or 7 through 12. Once the FDA gives a full and final approval, they're going to mandate that on all of your children. And they will have to get vaccinated in order to go to school. The good news at this point in time is that what is going to happen, we can switch to the next slide. What's going to happen is that there's going to be a personal belief exemption that's permissible. This comes as a regulation, okay? So the current mandate is coming through regulation, not through the legislature. Why? Because the governor still has dictatorial authority over what happens. You know, the state of emergency is still ongoing, so he, through a swipe of the pen, can decide things that he would not otherwise have been able to decide, such as fixing the elections, doing things with the elections. I'm sure Facebook's probably kicked us by now. But those are the kinds of things that he can do. He can skip the administrative mandate, the administrative review process, and just pass things. And so what's happened here is that there's this regulation that now says COVID-19 vaccine is going to be required of school children when it becomes available by the FDA. A fully approved, not as what we have presently is just authorization under the Emergency Use Authorization Act. So it'll become, under the final approval, then it will become a mandate. The distinction here is that right now there's a list of 10 vaccines that are required for your kids to be able to go to public school. And what's happened now is that they're trying to add COVID-19 to that. But the way the law is presently written by the legislature is that they can, neither the state nor any of the local school districts have the right to force the COVID-19 vaccine on your kids without offering a personal belief exemption or a medical exemption. So that's what's required of them right now. So that's the good news. The bad news is that as soon as the FDA approves this, I can guarantee that this legislature of ours is going to push through an emergency legislation to add the COVID-19 vax to the list of 10, and then it will become a mandatory requirement with no personal belief or medical exemptions. Okay? So I expect that to happen, so there'll be a short window. Now, we are involved in litigation against LA Unified School District, and they are in a boat where they're saying, well, vaccinations are required, but because we have to give an exemption, you can have the exemption. However, if you have an exemption, you have to study from home. You can't participate in sports. You see, sports and study in person is not a constitutional right. That's kind of a benefit. And so in order to force your kids to be vaccinated, and in order for them to be able to go to school, they're going to have to be vaccinated. So again, what are they trying to do? Separate our kids out, separate our families, figure out who is non-compliant. Some of the school districts, next slide. Some of the school districts here are trying to implement this themselves. Now, we see LA Unified coming out as being one, San Diego, Sacramento, Oakland, and they're trying to come out of the gate and say, we're going to be the first to force your kids to be vaccinated, to get the DART. I've heard that one. I like that, the DART. And so some of these large schools have done that. Now, some have different rules. So, for example, San Diego's mandate only applies to 16 and older, and it's predicated on FDA full approval. Next slide, please. The mandates without exemptions in San Diego and Los Angeles, they do not allow for personal belief or religious exemptions in order to be able to attend in person. And Sacramento City Unified does not allow for personal belief exemption, same thing. The great unknown is what's going to happen with other school districts when they start getting involved, because the governor said he wants the school districts to implement these rules. You see, what happens is the feds have come down and they've tried to force the employers to mandate the vaccine. And they're hitting hard on the airlines and all of these folks. I've read stories about phone calls coming from the administration to the heads of these many corporations. And what's happening now is similarly in the state context, you have the governor coming down and trying to enforce local agencies to pass their rules. They're trying, when COVID first came out, they called these things, they said, the guidelines for operating a grocery store. Well, they were called guidelines, and Ned and I were sitting here talking with some of our lawyers. We're scratching our heads saying, wait a minute, it says guideline, but in here it says must obey, And so it's a facade what they're doing. And they're trying to pull one over on all of us by acting like they're acting in our best interests, and these are just guidelines, but really they're mandates. The school districts are now being told by the state they have to enforce these rules. And so here we go, and the school districts are going to be pressured. They are being pressured, and we're going to have to fight them on a school district by school district level. And that's going to require those of you to get involved. And you'll see we don't just say get involved, but get involved now. You are here. I would assume that many of you are willing to be involved now. And you got to speak up. Now, we've been doing this for a long, long time. We've been speaking up in school districts. You might remember we were defending the Chino Valley Unified School District against the fight from the Americans United for Separation of Church and State, or one of those atheist groups. I can't remember which one it is. Anyways, they filed this lawsuit, and we're defending on the constitutionality of the right to be able to have invocations at school board meetings, and your church was a huge part of that. But what happened was there was one election in this school district just before our brief to the U.S. Supreme Court was due. Now listen, I knew we were going to lose the Ninth Circuit, and I told the school district, I said, we're going to lose, so you got to commit to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Oh, that's great. But we had a 3-2 majority at the time in favor of taking this case up and defending this rule. What happened? There was an election just before our Supreme Court brief was due. And when that election came, we lost a seat. And it then became a 3-2 majority against our taking this case up. Folks, I had lawyers from all around the country, major law firms, people calling saying, we want to be a part of your case. This is going to go up. This can set precedent. This can reverse the horrible precedent that we have had in the years past over the free exercise clause. It was very exciting. We thought we were going to be able to get this to the Supreme Court, and we're going to make a huge dent in law in our favor. But one election came out, and I don't know how many votes this fellow won by. Couldn't have been more than, I don't know, a few thousand. And here we are. We have this case that we had to dismiss. We couldn't take it up. So getting involved, speaking up, this one body right here could have a huge difference in what happens in your school board. In the next election that comes, local elections are incredibly important. We could have we possibly could have changed history in the United States with this one case, but for that one board member, that one seat that we lost. Okay, what are some of your options under the state mandate? If the state mandates that students all be vaccinated, and what's going to happen? Well, you'll have this right to this personal belief or medical exemption. Personal belief is, a broader term for religious exemption. Okay, so personal belief in this circumstance doesn't necessarily limit you to a religious belief. Now, while the state mandate applies to private schools as well, folks. Private schools have to comply with this vaccination requirement. I've been telling we represent tons of private Christian schools. I say, look, you guys have a religious belief, and give them the basis for the religious objection. I wrote the religious objection that I think many of you have probably read, and it starts at, not everybody has to agree on this, but like Brad said, we seek conviction from the Holy Spirit, and some of us are look at this and say, we shouldn't get vaccinated, and others say, no, I think I should, I'm my age, this and that. Don't let that divide us as a church. Seriously, this is a huge deal. Don't let it divide us as a church. And so, with that being said, private schools are going to be subject to it, but there's a lot of private schools who will not be enforcing it. Find out who those schools are, and we might be able to help you with that. Next slide. Okay, some options. The last option we really have is from the courts. We talked about you getting involved, speaking up. We've talked about you guys asking for the exemption. So right now there's another petition that's been filed. Nicole Pearson, I mean, she's like this social media, I don't know, what do you call them? Sympathizer or influencer? Social media influencer. Sorry. I don't do it a whole lot. Nicole, are you here?
She was at Calvary Canyon.
No, she's supposed to be. She told me she might be here tonight. Okay, if she's here, she'll be at our back table. Anyway, she's heading up this case. We're working with her on. And in this case, we're basically saying the school district doesn't have authority to enact these mandates. This is a statewide thing. So this is a great case. We'll see what happens in that. We're filing another petition to end the state of emergency. Lord willing, Lord willing, that works. We're hoping to end the state of emergency. We've got that petition all prepped up and ready to go. The Orange County Board of Education, Children's Health Defense, Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s organization, Bobby Kennedy. We're bringing that. Lord willing, we can end that state of emergency and solve a lot of these problems. Let me end with this. You don't need to go to that last slide. Let's end with this. I just want to encourage you very, very briefly. When I was here before, it seems like it was 4 or 5 years ago, maybe a little longer, we were talking about a religious liberty, and I addressed Matthew 24. We taught, about the birth pains, what's going to happen in the end times. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation, put you to death, da-da-da-da, y'all know about that. Many false prophets, da-da-da-da. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations. And then the end will come. You know what? The exciting thing is, okay, there's all these birth pains. You're all experiencing them right now. But think about what our ultimate role is. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout all the world as a testimony. That's your job. It's my job. God bless you.
Special thanks to Gina Gleason at Real Impact in California for hosting the town hall. For more information, visit their website. You are watching Faith in Politics. We'll be right back with Jordan Peterson.
We have a mission here at Kalo TV. We continue to be the only local Christ-centered media outlet in Hawaii. God has planted this station to nourish believers and to harvest souls for eternity. It's a calling we hold dear, and today we need your help. Partner with us as we continue to create original local programs.
The church needs to just stick to the scriptures.
She was like this as a little girl.
Running around.
Yeah, running around. Yeah.
Showcase solid biblical teaching.
We reach more people in one day with the broadcast of the gospel.
It's music to God's ears.
Improve our infrastructure and influence social media. Are you willing to labor with us for Hawaii, for your ohana, for the next generation? Go to kalotv.com and partner with us today.
Nobody delivers good news to Hawaii like Kalo TV delivers the good news, because we're the only local Christian TV station that's right here on island with one singular mission: to take the message of Christ even further. What is our mission? You, the body of Christ, encouraged, growing, empowered.
Come and join us.
Can't wait to meet you. Help us spread the good news. The only thing missing is you.
Come on out!
Kalo TV, broadcasting aloha 24/7.
Welcome back to Faith in Politics. We are excited about our new partnership with PragerU. This week, we feature a PragerU clip with Jordan Peterson as he discusses Marxist ideologies that are funded by you, the taxpayer, and is being taught in schools across the West. Check it out.
You may not realize it, but you are currently funding some dangerous people. They are indoctrinating young minds throughout the West with their resentment-ridden ideology. They have made it their life's mission to undermine Western civilization itself, which they regard as corrupt, oppressive, and patriarchal. If you're a taxpayer or paying for your kid's liberal arts degree, you're underwriting this gang of nihilists. You're supporting ideologues who claim that all truth is subjective, that all sex differences are socially constructed, and that Western imperialism is the sole source of all third world problems. They are the postmodernists, pushing progressive activism at a college near you. They produce the mobs that violently shut down campus speakers, the language police who enshrine into law use of fabricated gender pronouns, and the deans whose livelihoods depend on madly rooting out discrimination, where little or none exists. Their thinking took hold in Western universities in the 60s and 70s, when the true believers of the radical left became the professors of today. And now we rack up education-related debt, not so that our children learn to think critically, write clearly, or speak properly, but so they can model their mentor's destructive agenda. It's now possible to complete an English degree and never encounter Shakespeare, one of those dead white males whose works underlie our society of oppression. To understand and oppose the postmodernists, the ideas by which they orient themselves must be clearly identified. First is their new unholy trinity of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is defined not by opinion, but by race, ethnicity, or sexual identity. Equity is no longer the laudable goal of equality of opportunity, but the insistence on equality of outcome. And inclusion is the use of identity-based quotas to attain this misconceived state of equity. All the classic rights of the West are to be considered secondary to these new values. Take, for example, freedom of speech, the very pillar of democracy. The postmodernists refuse to believe that people of goodwill can exchange ideas and reach consensus. Their world is instead a Hobbesian nightmare of identity groups warring for power. They don't see ideas that run contrary to their ideology as simply incorrect. They see them as integral to the oppressive system they wish to supplant, and consider it a moral obligation to stifle and constrain their expression. Second is rejection of the free market, of the very idea that free voluntary trading benefits everyone. They won't acknowledge that capitalism has lifted up hundreds of millions of people, so they can, for the first time in history, afford food, shelter, clothing, transportation, even entertainment and travel. Those classified as poor in the US, and increasingly everywhere else, are able to meet their basic needs. Meanwhile, in once prosperous Venezuela, until recently the poster child of the campus radicals, the middle class lines up for toilet paper. Third and finally are the politics of identity. Postmodernists don't believe in individuals. You're an exemplar of your race, sex, or sexual preference. You're also either a victim or an oppressor. No wrong can be done by anyone in the former group, and no good by the latter. Such ideas of victimization do nothing but justify the use of power and engender intergroup conflict. All these concepts originated with Karl Marx, the 19th century German philosopher. Marx viewed the world as a gigantic class struggle, the bourgeoisie against the proletariat, the grasping rich against the desperate poor. But wherever his ideas were put into practice, in the Soviet Union, China, Vietnam, and Cambodia, to name just a few, whole economies failed and tens of millions were killed. We fought a decades-long Cold War to stop the spread of those murderous notions. But they're back in the new guise of identity politics. The corrupt ideas of the postmodern neo-Marxists should be consigned to the dustbin of history. Instead, we underwrite their continuance in the very institutions where the central ideas of the West should be transmitted across the generations. Unless we stop, postmodernism will do to America and the entire Western world what it's already done to its universities. I'm Jordan Peterson, professor of psychology at the University of Toronto. for Prager University.
Special thanks to PragerU for that eye-opening video. Well, that's all the time that we have for this episode. Once again, thank you so much for watching Faith in Politics. This nonprofit program exists because of support from viewers like you. If you believe that the content that we are providing is important, please consider donating. Also, we want to hear from you. Has Faith in Politics helped you navigate the political landscape? Or are you facing situations that you would like us to talk about? Contact us today. For those watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I'm Brian Lau for Faith in Politics. Till next time, aloha.